In the top left here, off the brink of a defeat there against T-Ball. Let's see if he can get some redemption from Legacy ANZ. He is Probe.
And his opponent down here in the bottom right-hand side, without a team, but with a whole lot of passion. And gosh, I love that picture next to the hatchery every time. It's so good. He is RiSky. Please your team.
Please your team. Manage yourself, pick up this this solid Zerg player. He's a very, very good player. You know, generally he is one of the more you know, defensive, reactive Zergs. He's not a bamboozle wild Zerg like some of the Korean Zergs out there, like you know, like a Su, of course, who's in the military at the moment, or like your rogues, those really like tech abusive Zergs where they're just like, I have this particular way I like to play. You know, rogues like, you know, he ain't happy if he's not making Nidasworm Swarm Host. That's kind of where things have been rolling. And right now, I feel like it's been all about the Spire for some reason in this actually like all matchups. Zergs have been loving that Spire, at least in Korea. I've been watching a lot.
No, absolutely, dude. I feel like Solar is one of those Zerg, Solar, who never really went away from the Mutas in this matchup as like a nasty SWAT, but we've seen more people going, you know, Glaive Adept or DTs into Blinkstalkers, and Mutas are really quite nice against these sort of openings as a follow-up to shut down those Warp Prisms. And in general, Probe is a player who sometimes gets very campy and defensive, and he takes a few too many little insurance measures, sometimes. The surprise Mutaswap is a good way to take advantage of a player like that who's kind of spreading their defense to many areas, but they can't quite shut down your Mutas. It can give you a big momentum shift, and even players like Demi have given Probe some trouble with the mass Mutaswap. So I remember a season or two ago, RiSky saying, you know, he'd been inspired by that, pulled it out himself as well, and got some, you know, really dominating wins against some of the Protoss players. So we'll see exactly how it goes. This map, of course, the base is quite spread out. Lots of big, wide open areas, though. So things like force field's not nearly as effective here.
Yeah, you're not wrong. We do have a pretty normal opening here from RiSky, of course, going for the 233rd base there. Link speed on the way. Lings get rid of that first probe, but it is, of course, the Adept coming in from Probe for basically a gut check. You know, can we get a Creep Tumor here? That's going to be lovely, but no, of course, Creep Tumor burrows just in time. And just going to shade, get a look at the drones, and then pull back. You were talking about Demi being, you know, the, you know, showing a lot of that Spire play. I feel like Demi's been doing that for years. Like, even before Zergs realized that the Spire was cool. He's a hipster Spire player, that Demi love. Ahead of the meta.
I mean, there's Roach boys. Demi is a Muta boy.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, sometimes he masters Roaches to get there, but definitely a Muta boy. The same way, you know, T-Ball is a bit of a Void Ray boy, and looks like Probe here joining the Void Ray camp. One of the most frustrating things for a lot of Zergs to play against at the moment is the heavy Void Ray play, but I feel it has some rather well-defined weaknesses, namely the fact that they are essentially like Mutalisks. They're very good for harassment, running around, being annoying, sniping things. Push comes to shove, they just don't do well against time attacks. And those multiple Void Ray plays we've seen punished by lots of Ravager Queen Ling pushes, like Mass Queens, getting Nidist out by Solar or pushed straight across the map. We've seen Zerg start to do just like Roach Hydra timings on the front really early, all sorts of different, hey, I'm gonna hit you if you try and keep building those Void Rays. So I'm actually really enjoying the way Probe's doing it, where it's like, hey, one Void Ray, it's basically just a supercharged Phoenix that can defend you from any really early ground attacks and hunt down Overlord. It only costs you 50 more minerals than a Phoenix and a little bit of build time.
You're not wrong. It's such a fantastic anti-Overlord tool. It's like you mentioned, a harassment tool potentially, but I do like the switch into Oracle and then eventually going to Twilight Council and Robo. You know, not leaning too heavily on the Stargate play. While it can be fun to meme out Void Rays, you know, from 2 or 3 Stargates and go Fleet Beacon, I really just like the one early game Void Ray and expanding with it. Kind of like, it's almost like how our PvZ was back in like 2017. Yeah, there used to be Nexus first Void Ray builds, and it's you know, kind of cool to see you know, it's of course Gateway Nexus now, but cool to see the Void Ray being made first out of Stargate for Overlord removal. It is still such a good anti-Overlord unit.
Not too terrible at taking out Creep Tumors either. They aren't armored, so they don't take the bonus damage, but using the Oracle there in tandem, cutting down a fair bit of that creep spread. And I do expect RiSky here to play Roach, Hydra, Lurker. Now, on this map especially, lots of wide open spaces, lots of ground to cover. I think that I'm just going to turtle on 100 drones and make lurkers and hydras and roaches all day. I actually think it's very weak against Protoss pushes here. I think there's so much space for both warp prisms to get in as well as just wide open areas. Straight up Immortal Storm is just going to be able to push through it a lot of the time. Disruptors are going to find good angles to pick at it if it's more of a, you know, a Stalker Sentry Colossus sort of tech style. Either way, I think you've got to be a bit more proactive on this map and use your own harassment or aggression. As you get to that 4-base stage, that 5-base stage, you get spread out quite thin.
And, you know, we do have the Blink follow-up here for Probe, which we're seeing a lot more popular these days in this matchup. And this Void Ray and Oracle combo has actually denied a lot of the creep spread from RiSky out in the middle of the map where Zerg really likes to take battles. You know, with all that lack of choke points, that big surface area, you want the creep spread here. Probe has been removing it at the front of that 4th hatchery. And to the north side as well has also been a little bit annoying. Roaches are coming out here for RiSky. Lair's been done for a minute. We haven't seen that Hydra Den. In fact, we're seeing the Infestation Pit go down here for RiSky.
Well, Robo only just went down. Is he just going to go all in? I think it looks like probe, or maybe, I don't know if all in's the right word for 70 probes, and gas is even going down on the 3rd, but there is a lot of Stalkers coming in. 8 gateways have finished. I mean, Probe is making a really low-tier army, and he's going to need to fight with it. And yeah, you're absolutely right to point out no Hydra Den straight to Infestation Pit, but there's also no Evo, like, chambers, just one. So I'm like, is this just Swarm Host Nidus, I guess?
So.
Yeah.
I think it's the Hell Muffin, man. Not a lot of gas or RiSky, so actually can't afford any at the moment. But he is under attack, of course, so it's important for him to get a bunch of units out and stop against this attack from Probe. He's about to have Blink and +1. A lot of +1 attack. Blink Stalkers is very, very good against the Roach Ravager army. Oh, there's the Hive and the Hydra Den. So RiSky's just trying to jump up into tier 3 Lurker tech. But he's under attack right now. Can he get this tech up and defend?
Well, this is such a clever play. I think Probe knew he likes the Swarm Host Nidus because this Blink play, you can't get Swarm Host out against this. They'll just push in and kill you. Not to mention they've got the mobility to shut down your Nidus Worm. So I think RiSky's like, oh, hot damn, I can't follow my plan. And he's shifting here. He's trying to pivot into that Hydra and Lurk attack. And it's not the slowest transition, but it's definitely not the fastest either. And you can see here, Probe is like, oh, you made a lot of Ravagers. All right, pull back, make Robo Bay, make charge. The only thing I'm kind of sad about for Probe is I really feel he could have had a 4th base up behind this as well, and I think that would put him in an amazing position.
Yeah, certainly, and this does mean that RiSky is going to be able to get up to that tier 3 Lurker Hydra tech, which means that, you know, the extremely scary Lurker upgrades, the burrow speed, but more importantly, I think the range speed, the ranged upgrade for the Lurker is going to be the scary part here for Probe. Now, with the Robotics Bay, you do have access to Disruptors, which are a decent anti-Lurker thing, but, you know, it feels like it's not super convincing unless you have, like, a lot of Immortals or, like, Storm as well. Like, it's hard to break through with just Disruptors, and in fact, Probe's going to go towards Colossus here.
Ooh,
good catch,
catching
Queens.
3 Queens. That's a very nice pick off there. Lurker Den finishing up, and Hydras are on the way, though. So we're going to see those Lurker upgrades starting very quickly. And notice how RiSky's expanding to both sides of the map. I don't think he's going to be able to defend both of those extremes, but I think he's kind of saying, hey, look, if one side goes down, we can always just pull drones to the other. I mean, in a perfect world, you hide both sides of the map, but he knows he's up against a very mobile Protoss player, but he's getting a bit frisky moving out across this map. The Void Ray, though, are going to do well. I don't think there's any Hydras up here, so...
You might be able to bile it down if Probe's not paying attention, but RiSky seems like he's more focused on going for the attack and the natural. Probe getting in some Zealots there at that 5th hatchery. He's definitely going to find some damage there. Probe also trying to hold on the front line. Luckily, his army arrived as the Biles connected there. Good multitasking here from Probe, though, keeping that Prism alive, saving all 4 of those Zealots, heading to the main base. Oh, Hydras, though, getting on top of that Prism. They do pick it off. They'll get the Zealots as well. RiSky is going to lose these Ravages to the damage on both sides here, with feels like Probe getting the bulk of it.
Yeah, he's going into DTs and Colossus behind this as well. Stalker's doing pretty well, but I think 97 workers are out. And I mean, it's kind of slow to get to the next stage of tech here for Probe. The Stalkers are mobile. The Zealots are going to be nice for run-bys, but losing the Prism, to me, this situation doesn't feel great for Probe. I look at it, I say the economy's not really there. He's on a low economy. He's up against a gigantic Protoss economy, and RiSky's doing a good job of keeping him busy. RiSky can afford to be a little inefficient here or there, and as long as he keeps up his bases, his economy, I mean, he's spreading workers everywhere. I feel like RiSky has made it to a place in the game where he's very comfortable. A good hatchery snipe, but it's a very unimportant base. He's still on 5 bases, and I talked about it when he put it down. I was like, he can't really defend all of this if push comes to shove, and he doesn't care if he loses it.
Now, these DTs actually did kill a Lurker there. They might get a second one. It doesn't have the burrow speed upgrade just yet, so it takes a little bit to get underground. ETs are coming on in. No detection for those spine crawlers, so this hatchery's in trouble as well. I mean, the 6 hatchery going down does not matter a ton, but if he gets the 6 and the 5th, then suddenly it matters.
Yeah, takes out 11 workers, a nice bit of damage down there, and most importantly, he distracts RiSky, which allows him to cut all the creeper control off the top side of the map. If he can push back and get those creep tumors in the middle, that's going to be amazing. Yeah, this is very nice. He's going into Fleet Beacon and Stargate, though, so I was saying earlier before when I knew these players were playing Maynard, we might have a 37 to hour and a half long match where neither player wants to really do anything to the other. And I think it's heading in that direction. So I wonder who's going to be more aggressive once we get there. Are we going to see Tempest Siege trying to force RiSky to make plays, or is RiSky just going to turtle it out like he did against T-Bull earlier in this tournament in the ANZ Champs? That's a good run by. Some nice damage, not letting those cannons get up.
The Overseers are on the way, though, so they actually will not be able to save these Lurkers, and the rest of the army gets rid of the Lings as well. Lurkers are, you know, RiSky's got a lot of workers. He's got a lot of money, but not a ton of gas. He's got 6 more Lurkers on the way, of course, to make up for the 2 that he just lost. This is such a YOLO bury from RiSky, but it might just work out for him here. Nova coming in for the south side for Probe, getting into the middle of the pack, getting 2 Lurkers damaged, but not killed. Plus 1 ship weapon's going to be denied here on that Cybercore. And also now, without the Cybercore, Probe cannot warp in more Stalkers. He's going to have to rely on Zealots, on Robotech, but his Robo's getting T-powered and picked off.
Ooh, another big Disruptor shot comes forward, but the Disruptor does go down. Another one goes down as well. He's going to try and engage Stalkers against Lurkers. It's like trying to fight a human by squirting mustard on their face. Stalkers are bad. They suck first Lurkers, and you see it there. It's a devastating fight. Anytime you force Stalkers to attack through Lurkers, you get to see just how trash of a unit they are in that matchup.
Probe does get a hatchery, strangely enough, on the other side of the map, but his army supply just got completely reset. Probe needs time. He needs time to get up this tier 3 air army. If he can get up to this air army, it will be powerful, and he will have a good army again. But RiSky, if he keeps piling on the pressure, Probe will not be able to stabilize here. He has been taking a lot of econ damage. He did have a lot of his tech structures picked off there in the natural as well. Big run by from RiSky. Exactly what RiSky should be doing here, keeping Probe on the back foot.
I don't know if there's any way for Probe to hang on here. RiSky's not going to give him the time to remax. RiSky's economy took a big bruising there as well. So he's like, no, let's go. I know I just took out your entire army. He's got Lurkers, Hydras pushing the front. The Lings on the bottom side coming back in. Zealot's going to try and warp in to defend that base, but that means his 3rd is exposed. RiSky here microing his Lings around, looking for that opening. He gets in on the 3rd and the natural at the same time. Looks like the 3rd base is defended, but the natural's taking big damage.
Certainly is. Some carriers fresh out of the oven here in the main base. The natural's gone down to the Hydra Ling Lurker of RiSky, and there is a Viper here just waiting for these Archons to come into range so he can just pull them into the meat grinder of Hydra Lurker. I mean, that was a lovely bit of damage there from RiSky, and I love these pulling back. He's like, you know what? I'm not going to lose these units. I'm going to pull back. I'll be fine. I just did some great damage to my opponent. Let's just get further ahead.
3 carriers are out of 4th one on the way. A few Oracles as well. But the Spy is being started up, and he's back up to 90 workers. Is RiSky. Takes out these DTs coming in as well. And yeah, you've got some pieces to an army, but it's not the whole puzzle. Templar Archives is only now starting up. I mean, I feel like you add Storm to this, and dreams can be made into reality. But without Storm, carriers, a few Archons, a few Zealots, it's just not that much of an inspirational army, is it? It's kind of relying on you flanking them, taking out all the Hydras really quickly, and hoping that maybe RiSky is a bit too committed to ground units like Lings and, you know, Lurkers and that sort of stuff. And once the Hydras are gone, your Interceptor's overwhelmed. So here we see a nice little skirmish. Looks like it should be okay for Probe. Does clean it up. His economy, though, very low at just 62 probes. He's down 60 supply, most of which is army, and there's still a lot of Hydra Lurker knocking on the door.
He's trying to replenish that big gas bank by using it to make some Archons here. Even just straight up High Templar would be nice at this point. He doesn't have Storm, though, so he kind of has to go the Archon path. A yoink there on one of the carriers. A big pick off there for RiSky, and he does get it. Losing quite a few Hydras here, though, and keep in mind that his anti-air is basically Hydralisks at the moment. So, you know, the carriers can be threatening. The Hydra's attacking into the 4th Nexus with some Lings running into the main base. Carriers will get rid of the Lings eventually, but Probe still bleeding out workers here. The Carrier's Intercept is taking a long time to get rid of those Lings.
Yeah, that's going to be that. I think Carriers was the wrong choice here to make the comeback with. I think he needed to immediately swap into Storm and try to rebuild those ground units. To be fair, though, I think that might have upped his chances 10 or 15% at most. It still would have been a really hard comeback from there, but when you're that broke, starting a carrier transition to me feels hopeless. To me, it feels like it's never going to work. You're really relying on them taking sloppy engagements into the carriers a few times in a row so the interceptors can take value. But hey,
Yeah.
it's Hydra Lurker Viper. If there's just a few carriers, it's like, hey, yoink, 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 you know, pick off, overwhelm. They're too immobile. They can't cover everywhere. You don't even have any air upgrades. So look at that upgrade disparity. 1, 2, 3 upgrades versus just +2 attack on the ground for Probe. And he's going to try and move forward and create some space for himself. But without that Psystorm, without High Templar, he's in trouble.
And he's just going to tap out there. I mean, Probe unfortunately got picked apart from the start of that game there. He was looking all right at that blink pack, but then after RiSky found some damage on the other side of the map, Probe was just taking chip damage over and over again. RiSky just kept poking at him, and every time he did, he was rewarded by doing some more and more damage and getting further and further ahead. Probe at the moment, yet to win a map in this event. He is and he is on the back foot. He's 1 map away from elimination. Does he really get 4-0'd here? Does he go down 0-4 in group stage for this DreamHack main event? I don't know, Pig. That doesn't seem likely.
He needs to knuckle down and muscle up is what he needs to do. I think this was a game. It looked like it was going okay for him, but a lack in map control, allowing those lurkers across the map was the problem. I mean, there were the moments like this, it looked okay. Remember, he was playing a lower economy style than RiSky significantly. And because he was doing that and he was adding tech units so slowly, I was like, yeah, you know, this is okay as long as he doesn't make any big positional mistakes. And well, that's exactly what this was. A huge positional mistake. His whole army got lured to the bottom left by a handful of units. And anytime you are engaging into lurkers that are already burrowed, stalkers are very bad. This army of probes, you might say, well, why would you even have this army? It's great for pinning back the lurkers. You rotate around the different attacking angles, keep forcing those lurkers to reposition. Each time they do, you shave off a few units, and then you pull back before they land the splash damage on you. But you're never going to break an entrenched lurker position with that. And ever since then, you could see these tiny Protoss armies trying to take on 16 times the number of units, and of course, just not able to do it.
Indeed. He's just being pulled apart there for too many pieces of RiSky, and it felt like at that point in the game, Rogue spent the last 5 minutes of that game just putting out fire. He had Lings just destroying his infrastructure in the main base. He had a lurker in the natural just sitting there, and he's like, I don't have enough to split up and deal with everything at once. I just don't have the army to be able to do that. You mentioned carriers potentially being a bit of a mistake there for Probe, trying to jump to that super ultra late game. Kind of what RiSky was doing in that game, you know, trying to jump straight into Hive, straight into Lurker, but doing it off the back of an economy that's already been quite bruised by the Zerg. So you think maybe an adjustment from Probe going maybe towards just replenishing the Stalkers, or going maybe Charge Lot Archon or High Templar tech might have been the better call there for Probe, or maybe leaning a bit more on the tier 3 Robotech. What do you think was the...
I think the Stalkers was a great idea to stop that Nidus Swarm host, get control of the map, right? I think we saw RiSky was like, oh man, I gotta go Lurkers. Man, I wasn't ready for this. Like, I think that looked great. So I think strategically, if you're worried about the Swarm host, seems like a good way to just cancel that out. But I would have liked to see Probe going up to a 4th, going into the double Robo a bit quicker. Colossus, if there's lots of Hydras and Zerglings, as it was, bigger Lurker commitment, more Disruptors, and I think just maintaining map control from there. Really, with that army, you have to be the one dictating where the map control is. He managed to shut down the creep of RiSky, so it looked like he was going to be able to do that, but he just lost map control, let his whole army get pulled out of position, and that is something you can never do that if you're using Stalker Sentry-based armies up against Lurkers. So map control, absolutely the thing he'll have to work on if he plays the same style.
Well, with the wrap down there of Game 1, it's in the books, and we're going to take a short break, and we return. Game 2. Probe on tournament life here. Can he tie it up? Tune in after the break to find out. We'll see you then. G'day, StarCraft fans. Welcome back. We are in a bit of a weird spot here, not only because the losers match has got 2 previous champions and its strongest players in the region, but we are actually 1 map away from potentially having the last season's champion excused from the tournament in group stage without having won a map. The onus is on Probe here to tighten up and get himself a tied series and potentially come back 2 maps in a row, and that is going to be a tough one here as RiSky is a monster.
Absolutely. I mean, that was a rough series in the first start of the day, and it's just getting harder and harder here for Probe.
Yeah, it is a tough one. Oh, also allergic to my opinions. Damn, dude, we have sneezes on both sides here. We got that weather shift here in Australia, guys. Just letting you know that it is starting to shift in the southern hemisphere. We're going to, as it is up there as well, it's going to go in the warmer direction. But you know, it's hay fever season right now. We're having those 35 Celsius days, and we're having those 14 Celsius days. Sometimes it's storming and raining. Sometimes it's belting with sunlight. We just don't know what's going on. Our bodies don't know what's going on. So there's going to be some sneezing, some sniffling, and maybe some dry, scratchy eyes. It'll happen from time to time with these late broadcasts.
Oh, it's going to be a heck of a lot of very moist eyes and faces and a lot of sad hearts if this man goes out early. He is last season's champion, the Blue Protoss, representing Legacy ANZ. It is Probe. The probiest with the mostiest.
It is indeed. And in the bottom left here, looking pretty frisky in game number 1. Let's see if he can do it again and get himself a 2-0 victory to stay alive in the tournament. He is RiSky. Please give team.
Please. Well, it's an interesting map here, Pillars of Gold. One where we've seen definitely quite a few of those Stalker-based armies used before. And knowing Probe, if he's shown the Blink Stalker style there once, I wouldn't be surprised if he brings it out again. And don't mind that Void Ray as well, the way he cleared up the creep methodically, picked off an Overlord or 2. It wasn't a bad opening, but RiSky there is one who clearly, you know, he's such a big fan of the best Zergs in Europe, and he follows them. He really does. He likes to follow them strategically, learn from them, emulate what they do, and that's what he does. He tries to perfect what he sees from the best players out there. Now, he does add a bit of his own flair, you know, but you could see very comfortable when he wasn't able to go for the Swarm Host, just going into the Lurkers. That new style of Raynors, the go ahead and kill 20 workers. I'll still have 80 left, and I'll immediately rebuild 20 within 2 seconds. I won't even notice the economy. Like, there is just this previously unknown level of economy where I remember when people first started going to 80, 85 workers, it was like a year and a half into Legacy of the Void. 2017, that was revolutionary. Well, who knew in 2020, players would figure out you can go up to 100 and even 105 workers regularly. It's insane.
Yeah, you're not wrong. He really does prefer to play that play style. It feels like a couple of the European Zergs really like to play that particular play style. You know, it's not just RiSky. We do have the Lynx coming out here, of course, to get rid of Pro. We're just starting things off here very normally adept. It is straight into Warp Gate, though, so if it's a Stargate, it's going to be a bit of a later one, but this generally leans into a Twilight Council opening.
Indeed, definitely looks like it could go that way. The Probe turning around there, wants to see if there's any cheeky Zerglings sneaking across the map, and just make sure not being all in at all. We'll see the third base, of course. And that tech structure, it's about time for it to go down. It's going to be a Robo first. Oh my, Robo then Twilight. Okay, so a little bit of a mix-up here from Probe. Curious to see exactly what he ends up doing with that.
Going to push back this Overlord, of course, having a little bit of looking natural, which RiSky really wanted to see the timing of that Warp Gate to know, well, at least to have a better idea what's coming out of Tier 2 here for Probe. You know, is it a Stargate, is it Twilight, is it Robo? All of those things require a different response. Usually with what Probe's going for, this could be like an Archon drop kind of opener with a Dark Shrine or Templar Archives, but it could also be a Depth Printer, which is, of course, a build that we see every now and then in this matchup still to this day, even though Zergs have gotten pretty good against it. We're seeing Charge from Probe. Okay. Now, this is a little more on the aggressive side.
This is very interesting. Yeah, he's got 3 guys on cast. I'm so sad you didn't cast EPTNA with me this week. Final game of the whole tournament, Pilly went for this build. I was like, he's bringing back like the Marjorie? What is it? he misclicked charge and warped in 20 adepts without glaives. It was one of the most sad moments. It was so unfortunate. But I think this one here is just a charge pressure into a third base. So this is actually going to be very, very cool. Like this is like Haas does this. Now Haas doesn't take gases on his natural when he does this. He does a 2-gas third base, you know, mass sentry sort of style. In this case, the second prism starts immediately. We're seeing the, I was about to say Templar Archives. It's going to be Zealot pressure to start. Archon's behind. Now, does he go 8 gateways and then a third Nexus, or does he go straight to the third Nexus? Keep your eye on that gateway count to see how hard Probe is going to lean into this.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's just the 4 by the looks of things here for Probe, which is still a fair bit of pressure from charge lots. There are no roaches yet for RiSky. He's about to be able to produce them with a roach war and finishing up. But of course, you know, he's prepared for a bit of an Archon attack here. Charge lots coming in, potentially just being ferried into the main base. Not something that RiSky's going to be happy to have to deal with at the moment. He's still making a lot more Lings. I mean, the Lings are fantastic against dealing with small amounts of Archons or dealing with small amounts of Adepts and that sort of thing. But charge lots maybe less so. It is just 4 though.
Just 4 Zealots, and there's plenty of units there to defend. Doesn't really find anything yet, but that's totally fine. Archon's coming in on the right-hand side, and of course, this Prism has not been spotted. Going to be an Archon drop on one side, Zealot drop on the other, and this is where he's going to start looking to find that big damage. Third Nexus is going to try to go down, but there's no unit guarding that third. As I say, that RiSky pulls his single Zergling off the third. That's very fortunate for Probe, though. Actually, as I say it, he was going to escort it down with the Adept, nonetheless.
All right, so Probe's going to try and... This is a very multitasking, very control-heavy unit comp that he's going for here. Double Prism. He's got a Prism with charge lots on the north side. He's got Archons on the left, on the right side. And he is going to try and find some damage. Now, at the moment, the Archons aren't finding too much. They've got an Overlord. They're not bleeding into the third base mineral line. So far, RiSky is deflecting quite well. And the surprise factor of these... Oh, gets a pylon kill there, no cancel. The surprise factor of these War Prisms definitely has met their end. Like, that RiSky knows that he's getting double prismed here at the moment. Probe is making a lot more gateways here. And he has been doing a good job of keeping these prisms alive. Can he find an opening, though? RiSky defending so well so far.
Yeah, that Observer is not spotting the creep tomb on the right-hand side either, and clearing creep is a big part of this build. You need to keep that creep back so you can limit their vision. If they see where your prisms are, they're always going to be well positioned for it. RiSky here is only actually equal in workers, but the third Nexus hasn't, you know, it's just started. So at any point, RiSky holds down that worker key, he gets a massive economy lead in just the blink of an eye.
You're not wrong, but at the moment, RiSky is feeling a little bit of the heat still from these 2 prisms, so still making a lot of roaches. If RiSky goes really hard on the roaches, it could turn into a big counterattack here, where Probe is going to have to bring everything back home and muster up some kind of defense. And if he does that, it is going to be without any real robo threat. He's only got 1 Immortal. He's heading towards a second now. I mean, maybe Probe realizing, oh, a roach counterattack definitely is a possibility here. Time to get a few more Immortals out. Overseer of RiSky has a look at the natural. Forge not spinning here for Probe. Would love to have +1.
So let's going home from the other drop. It is a double-double. That's right. Probe has ordered the double-double with extra Archons. 4 Archons, 2 Warp Prisms, and he is dancing them around this map looking for damage. He's finding Overlords here and there. Problem is, can he defend that counterattack? You talked about it. RiSky wants to finish this series. He wants to go through, and I'm not sure if Probe fully realizes how much danger he's in. That Stalker thankfully gives him a little of warning. But, Archon's fighting Queens right now. The Prism on the right-hand side needs to get home. I think there might just be a few too many roaches. 2 Immortals and a bunch of Zealots doing quite well.
Yeah, these 2 Immortals certainly fantastic. They don't have their +1 upgrades. Force Field's coming down for Probe as well. The Chargeless going to catch some Ravages on the left side. The reinforcements from RiSky are getting minced by the Zealots. These 2 Immortals still alive, fighting an overcharged shield battery range. Prism gets recalled back home, assisting with a back line of Ravages here. Probe actually defending very cleanly here. Knocks back RiSky's counter.
Very nice, and there's 4 Archons in those Prisms. They're going to hunt you down. You got to watch out, RiSky. 4 Archons drop on top of his army. Zealots are there as well. RiSky.
GG.
He knew he was going to lose that whole army on the retreat. You might be like, what? GGing with more supply. Oh, he was about to be down 40 supply from where he was at that moment. He was going to take out maybe 3 or 4 Zealots with him. That was a well-held attack there by Probe. Honestly, an impressive hold. Those 2 shield batteries out front the third there. And remember, he didn't even have one of those prisms home at the start of that. So I thought, wow, this is a very scary moment. But it felt like Probe mentally, he was very well set up to deal with it.
I was a little worried there for Probe when he tried to go for something a little bit more cheekier. You know, rushing charge, getting Templar Archives, going double prism. I'm like, oh, this feels so spicy. But, you know, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I'm going to put my faith in Probe here for it to work. and it definitely paid off. Like, I wouldn't even say the double prism was particularly effective, but the defense from Probe that is the Probe that I know and love. That is Mr. Macro, Mr. Defensive Protoss. You know, after your big international superheroes, championship level Protosses, you know, your Reigns, your Statses, of course, Probe not that level, but he is a version of those players for Oceania. He's very, very good at defending, good with just making sure that he is able to use the defender's advantage to the utmost degree. You know, you'd be down 50 army supply, 60 army supply, and still able to hold on thanks to the, you know, some masterly placed shield batteries, using well-placed units, getting the recall down just in time, and Charge really saving his bacon there as well.
Never try to force the issue when it's Immortals and shield batteries and you've only got Roach Ravager, especially not when there's a Prism overhead. And RiSky, of course, learned this. If you could catch him off guard, catch a few sentries, maybe cap an Immortal before the fight really starts, awesome. You're going to do it. You're going to smash through. You've got a good advantage. In that scenario, I think RiSky needed to play it a bit more patiently. He was still even on workers. He could have droned behind it, or he could have even kept massing up the units, growing that Ravager count, and try to bait Probe away from the batteries, bait him into the open. But there's always that moment where the Roaches try to dive forward, and it's really you're saying, hey, I have to break him here because I'm taking crazy amounts of damage. I am attacking through melee units, the Zealots, to try and get at the Immortals, the big damage dealers. And if those Immortals get healed by the batteries, the Prism starts popping units in and out. Suddenly you realize you've just sacrificed your whole army and you've killed a few Zealots and you've damaged some Immortals. It's just not enough.
Indeed. Well, I mean, that's game 2. We've kind of wrapped it up as much as we can because we got to get set our sights in game 3 here, Pig. We've got one map to decide the tournament life of RiSky or Probe. And it's going to be Jagannatha here, which is a massive map, the biggest map in the map pool at the moment for the latest season of 2020 on the ladder. And this map, you know, historically, the bigger map generally is nice for Zerg. How do you feel about it? How do you feel particularly about Jagannatha in this matchup?
You know, I think we're going to see 8 Void Rays with Flux Veins, Maynard, running around this map sniping hatcheries. At least that's what I'm hoping for, dude. That's how I lose every game on this map. I think RiSky's a little bit better than me, just a tad. I think he might know how to deal with such things. We're going to have to see how it goes.
Yeah, we're going to load up here and see things unfold before our very eyes here on this monstrous map. Man, I mean, this actually could very easily be one of those 30-plus minute games that we're talking about. You know, there's those ultra late games. We kind of thought maybe Lightshade might get there, but of course, RiSky managed to do a lot more early game damage than we expected, so it didn't quite get to that late stage. Probe definitely wanted to get there, but wasn't allowed to get there comfortably. But in the end, let's get into it. Oh my God, is RiSky going to 12 pull here on Jagannatha? And Probe sends out 2 probes. Oh my God, in the bottom left from Legacy ANZ, this is Probe.
Ooh. And up here in the top right-hand side, he says, double or nothing. Not afraid to take risks. He thinks on this big map, his opponent is not going to be scouting, is not going to be prepared for this 12-pool opening. It is RiSky.
Oh my God. I mean, the Probe going across the map really, really early here is very normal. Getting the hatchery block is quite standard affair in PvZ. But right now, Probe would expect to be dealing with a drone, and there's nothing.
Yeah, he's got to go up and double check if hatchery by 1 minute might just be a pool first opening. In this case, it's not just pool first, it is 12 pool. Probe though, lots of warning. So he's probably going to try and block natural and go for a second gateway and a cyber core to be 100% safe behind this. It's a really good position on such a big map. I mean, RiSky. He's taken a wild risk here. He's actually playing to his namesake for once. It's cool to see he's evolved in that way. But I think the downside here is the fact that I don't think he thought this probe would be coming across. I think he said, look, this is a map where you can get your hatchery down usually before the probe arrives because it's such a long distance. But Probe sent one of his very first workers across the map as early as possible to ensure that block. Because of that, he's got a lot of time to prepare. He should be chrono boosting out the Zealot, a second Zealot, and then Adepts will be coming out behind that. And yeah, it's just textbook. Probe in the wall, the Zealot's there. Zerglings will go for the Cyber Core, but that's got a lot of hit points.
It certainly does. And with the second Zealot, that other Zealot can come out hunting for those Lings. They're going to get some damage on the Cyber Core, but I doubt they'll kill it. Probe's not actually able to dump a Chrono on that gateway. RiSky's still gut-checking that wall in there of Probe. Very close to having that Zealot. The Probe, of course, blocking here in the wall to assist the Zealot. Takes a bit of surface area on that unit, but second Zealot means get out of here, Lings. And this opening from RiSky has been deflected.
Yeah, they were wearing the wrong shoes. They would have messed up the ratio of Zerglings versus Probes inside the Protoss Club. It was just a situation. It wasn't meant to be for those Zerglings. But I'm not sure. Was it Probe? I think it might have been Probe who said 12 pool is actually just a good macro opening for Zergs and Zerg vs Protoss. I believe it was him who uttered that phrase, where he's like, no, like they can like do no damage, just force you to like wall off, and then they're still even. Realistically, I don't think that's the case, especially here where they haven't even killed any buildings in the wall. You know, yeah, the Nexus is delayed, but these Adepts are such a problem. You have to build a big pack of Zerglings to deal with this, and right now RiSky's trying to skimp on it. He's just barely going up to 10 slow Zerglings. His Queens, though, are out front. That's going to force the Shade out early. That's an important move. RiSky well set up.
Indeed. So doesn't look like RiSky's going to take critical damage here. The Adepts are going to shade into the main base. It is just slow lings, so it's going to be a shade for a look rather than for actual, diving potential. Probe going into Twilight Council here as a follow-up. No Stargate here for him. Just going to go straight into Twilight, usually Robo to follow as well. And this is looking pretty solid for both players. You know, RiSky's going to try and repair the damage that he's done himself to his own economy here with this opener. Probe just gets towards his natural Nexus up. It's finally finished here.
Nice damage, though. I really like this. You shouldn't really be able to confirm the cancel, but he's already forced 12 Zerglings out. He's getting a lot of damage on the hatchery, which could come into play later on. Yeah, there's a big chance you snipe that with your follow-up pressure, whether that be Glaive Adepts or Dark Templars coming in. Looks like the Zealot will sacrifice himself. Lings aren't in position. Adepts are going to dive past.
Good Evo block there. Nicely done by RiSky, saving the bulk of his drones. These two Adepts have really been in the thorn on the side of RiSky here. You know, he's just barely started Ling speed. These Adepts are outpacing them for the most part. One of them finally does go down. The other one should be able to save herself, at least momentarily here, as two drones go down. And now it's the main base. Probe not really controlling it at the moment as it just goes toe-to-toe with the Queen, which is unfortunately a battle that the Adept does not win, especially with the babies rolling in there. And there's Resonant Glaives and a Dark Shrine.
Ooh. Could be fake Glaives there with just 3 gateways. Looks a lot like a 3DT warp-in build. Might even see Glaives cancelled, but right now, nothing that shoots up here on Probe's side of the map. So the Overlord does have free reign.
Yep, not a lot you can do here without that Stalker to force it back. Now, RiSky did not see the Dark Shrine here, which I feel like the nastiest thing for Probe to have scouted here by the Zerg. This is the biggest deal. Now, RiSky does have some lings on the outside. He's looking for, the Warp Prism. He's looking for anything coming out of the natural. He probably assumes there's a Robo back there. It is the Invisible Man Clubhouse.
Yeah, that's right. That DT Shrine is almost ready. Prism is going to arrive there right as it finishes, and the Pylons time out with it as well. You could, it's just something beautiful about a well-lined up build order there. DT Shrine, Pylons, gas kicking in, ready for 3 Dark Templar warp-ins, and there they go. Perfectly timed out here for Probe, despite having done that 2-gate reactive opening there with the defense.
No Spore.
Lings there. Oh, that's huge.
No Spore. The DT's just going to dive and pick it off, and that Prism is going to get muscled back by the Queens, but it can circle around. Spore going to unburrow. You were talking about that low hit point hatchery, Pig. Oh, ooh. Didn't quite get the swipe off. I really think Probe could have gotten that, but really wanted to save that Prism.
You know what? He could always come back and get it later as well. It's always going to be a threat there. The DTs are finding even more damage, and this is almost even better, making sure he doesn't lose those DTs, and he's keeping his opponent just frantically running around. Now, he's got to watch out for those Queens there, does Probe, but look at that, actively microing. He's going to just steer south with this Prism. Ooh, he wants to go for it, but no, he's got to get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, it's so tantalizing to go for the third base, but losing the Prism and the DTs would be catastrophic as well. You know, it doesn't look like a lot, but it is a very expensive payload relative to the early stages of this game. He is ahead quite a bit in economy, Pig. You know, RiSky's made a lot of units here. He's really taken a break on drone production. So Probe's got a lovely econ lead at the moment. A lot of Zerg units out on the map, though. So a little bit tough for Probe to take that third without that Sim City, which he just barely gets in time. Still a lot of lings, though. RiSky might just be able to overwhelm. Yeah,
I mean, he definitely needs to send some of those around and start hitting the Nexus as well as the backside of that. But Probe is actually going to tax him for it, and RiSky, a bit too slow. He's got to click that Nexus. He's going to go for the Sentries, actually, and the Immortal. Oh, Sentries, nice pickoffs. You'll get the Immortal as well. Third Nexus will survive all of this, but on the other side, if he can take out those Archons, it would be big. But nice hot pickups there by Probe, juggling. He's got to get that out of there. Oh, loses one Archon.
Yeah, loses the Archon. Did get some good damage on the Roaches, but it was a big bit of damage on his side of the map as well. With the Sentries going down, that's 100 gas per unit. You know, the Immortal, 100 gas, 2 Sentries, 100 gas each. Big pickoffs there for RiSky. So lots of damage on both sides. Probe still behind a little bit in supply, largely in army. It feels like the Zerg army supply lead doesn't really matter a ton, though, because attacking into the Protoss at this point is very, very, very tough. Unless you have like a 40 or 50 army supply lead, I really feel like it's tough to attack a Protoss.
Indeed, going to go into charge. Archons +1, really rounding out the tech there is Probe, who He's got that very nice setup, and I think there's definitely chances to play from here for RiSky, but things are looking good for Probe. He's been in control so far. Nice micro here on these queens and trying to get that creep spread out, but Probe's got a lot of information. It feels like he's got his finger on the pulse of this game, and he's not really giving any freedom of room or control for RiSky. DT is running in individually as well, just grabbing what they can. Does go down, but 3 workers, not too bad there, especially when you've already been damaging your opponent. That also distracts, opens up the opportunity here. Comes forward and will take out the head of the creep down there. Going to rotate into the main base. 8 gateways on the way, sentries, charge, immortals. This really looks like it's going to round up for a push out to try and kill the 4th base. I think Probe's going to be moving out any moment and joining up with this warp prism, and he can probably even take his own 4th base behind it. Probe's got a fantastic army building up at home.
Yeah, RiSky has been leaning super heavily onto Ravager Ling Bane here. He's just heading towards Ravager Ling Bane. And Probe is making an army specifically designed to destroy an army like that. He's got the Immortals for the anti-roach Ravager. He's going to have charge lots to be able to assist those Immortals and basically line back those units while shredding Lings. And, you know, Banelings are going to have to be very, very important here for RiSky. They're going to have to be babysat to make sure the Zealots get killed. Speaking of Zealots, warp in the main base, not spotted here by RiSky just yet.
Trying to pull everything down here to the low ground. Those Zealots need to go in, though, I think. They are barely in a pocket of darkness.
No.
Ooh, Roaches, though, getting joined up with the Archons, sorry. The Archons are going to jump with the Zealots. Try to get on top. Good micro by RiSky, though. Stop critical damage yet, but the drones and the Queen, they're exposed. They're stuck in that main base. You do not want to be stuck in the playpen with a bunch of hungry Zealots.
You do not. Now, the Zealots are going to get some drone damage here, and this is pretty nice. Good damage there from Probe. He did lose his Zealots. I feel like maybe the Archons join in there. They get a lot more drone damage, but he's denying some mining time as well as killing drones. That hatchery's still extremely low. RiSky drops the spot. So once again, RiSky is teching up. He's trying to get to that next stage of the game. Probe doesn't, like you were talking about that attack big, it doesn't look like that attack's actually coming. So this Spire may play a big role in this game.
26 Roaches have been forced out right now. No commitment to Ling Bane. RiSky's just trying to get that economy up. Roach Ravager to survive. He says, please let me get this +2 melee. Let me get a giant mineral income and then bring it back with mass Ling Bane. He's going to open up the tech tree, though. Infestation, Pet Spire, of course, the chance for a big muta swap, or in this case, I think just a handful of mutas.
Prism left the Archon there to its own devices. Unfortunately, does go down.
You know you're not allowed to text while you're driving a warp prism, mate. That's against the rules of the Adjudicator, and it's bloody naughty.
And it's dangerous.
Of course, isn't watching. He leaves the Archon behind, drives off before the Archon's got back in the prism.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we do have a lot of storms from Probe. He's been warping in high tempo for quite a while. He's got 5 of them here, ready to start bringing in some bad weather on top of RiSky. The single Archon lost its brother in arms, but is still just getting rid of creep on its lonesome on the left side here. Still a lot of creep spread for RiSky, though. He's done a good job of it.
Yeah, that one Archon has just been very constant. I think what I really like about Probe here is it's just constant light pressure, constant pokes, constant prodding while hitting his macro very well behind it. That's one of these things, you know, I don't think any of his harassment, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. But it's just like this consistent jabbing at his opponent, just keeping him off balance, And, you know, it shows. RiSky, I think, has been struggling with this. He's now actually, wow. Whoa. I think he's poked the bear a little bit much. That's 14 Mutalisks coming out. He wants to shut that prism down and probably dive into the mineral line and do some damage before he does that.
I mean, this is the I want to kill you and potentially start a base trade weird game amount of mutas. That's just such a tough muta count for Probe to deal with. Keep in mind that he does not have Stargate tech here. This is all about Archons and all about having anything that shoots up to be able to fight back against the Mutmuts, which have just shown up. Meanwhile, Probe with a charge lot DT Archon attack here at the 4th base, or the 3rd base rather, while the 4th base is getting hammered by all the High Templar with charge lots and Archons assisting there as well with the Immortals. There's going to be big damage on both sides here.
Yeah, he's going to take out 2 of the Zerg bases very quickly. Stalker's trying to defend there, but there is still 13 mutas standing strong. Those Banelings are going to be so threatening, dude. If he doesn't land the storms just right. Oh, big storms.
The storms. Nice storms there from Probe, getting rid of the Banes. Eats some High Templar damage there from the Corrosive Biles. Click on that hatchery, damn it. That thing is so low. These units just keep attacking into other units. Oh, the Banelings just crashed into that one Archon as well. RiSky does not have a whole lot of Banes. He's still got mutas doing damage on this side of the map with Stalkers just sort of prancing to and fro. They don't have blink, so they're kind of walking from the natural to the main, to the natural to the main. DT finally arrives to finish what he started here.
Wow.
All those minutes ago.
Oh, if only those Banelings manually detonated, they could have saved it. But, oh, well done here. Probe here, I think he saw those mutas with those zealots. He had zealot spotters all over the map, and just those few seconds of warning, he immediately went in with the main army on the right, with the counterattack on the left-hand side as well, and that was enough. You know, he walked in stalkers, he tried to make cannons and batteries. He hung on. He lost quite a few probes at home, but he annihilated RiSky on the other side of the map. RiSky, it wasn't that his army was bad, it's that his army needed to be scouting to be a 30 banelings walk into Storm, and we saw what that looks like.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, RiSky at the moment did get a couple more banelings in his army here, but it feels like he's so Roach Ravager heavy that his army still doesn't have a good fighting chance against the front line of Probe, which is just so Archon heavy. Oh, banelings looking for the High Templar. Oh, the Archon morph right at the end there to save them and turn them into a cotton ball of death. These Immortals still pretty healthy as well, with lots of kills between them.
That was very powerful. Couple of banelings straight out of Ice Baneling Escape, I think. They found their way right past a lot of units into the center of the High Templar and Sentries, but a Pyrrhic victory in amongst the slaughter that has been the last few minutes of this game. Probe is up on 70 workers. He's got 4 bases. He's got his +2 attack. He has a ton of Immortals. 7 Immortals, 15 Zealots, 3 Archons, 13 Stalkers, 3 High Templar with Storm, and 2 little Sentries there for Forcefield. Prism in the top left corner of the map. Army moving down the right. RiSky has the dregs. A few Ravagers, a few Roaches, and 2 Banelings. It's just not enough.